Hello, friends. Are you ready to hear the rest of the tale? Then let us commence. Last time we checked in with the Ragtags, they had tracked their sort of friend, the tabaxi smuggler Answers, to the crystalline temple of Arvandor in Sylvania, a wondrous Eladrin temple where he had been hiding. Once there, our heroes and Answers had discussed locating the tabaxi's brother, Jewel, a Sealy operative who had gone missing after stealing a Fey tome and heading to a mysterious and foreboding ruin known as the Widow's Henge. I mean, if you were going to go missing without a trace on purpose, you probably couldn't have found a better way to do it, right? Oh, wait, I don't think Jewel was trying to go missing on purpose, though. Oh, yeah, not sure why he did all that then. Everyone agreed to help find Jewel and get to the bottom of whatever he was trying to figure out at the Henge in exchange for answers, taking them to Darkon to meet the crime lord Mordrin Slake, the man who hired the smuggler to transport the heroes in stasis tanks to Sylvania at, well, I'm assuming, the start of all of this. Heading out of Sylvania, the heroes and Answers wandered into the forest for a spell, finding the usually whimsical and wondrous woods becoming increasingly dark and creepy the further they headed away from the town and towards the Henge. Widow's Henge was somehow more harrowing and strange than anyone would have guessed, and it was clear that it was rife with fey magic and enchantments. Strangest of all, at the center of the inner Henge was a splendorous and inviting feast that was, well, it was very obviously a trap. I mean, you don't need to be a wizard or a genius to see that, right? Triggering the trap, the heroes watched as the forest in a 30-foot radius sank rapidly into the ground, leaving a wide and deep pit, and at the bottom of which they could see a tunnel leading off into darkness. Lowering themselves in, because I assumed they felt it was the thing that made the most sense to do next. Though I would argue, strongly, that it wasn't, they explored the large sinkhole. That was when they discovered they had been tailed by two pixies, who were agents for Sylvania's Garda. The two Fae, Lilyspeck and Dimplemist, offered to help the heroes in exchange for help finding the tome that had gone missing from the town's law spire. You remember the tome, yeah? I always hate pronouncing this. Liber Lunae Infinitus. Apparently the Garda, and therefore most of the high-ups in Sylvania, wanted this book returned most urgently. Turns out, Answer's brother Jewel had stolen from the folks who had stolen it from the law spire, and whatever he had learned from it after a quick read had led him to the Widow's Henge and, everyone was guessing, this passage. Having no choice but to move forward, after the mouth of the hole magically sealed itself up again, the Ragtags and company pressed on through the increasingly frigid tunnels. The pixies informed everyone that this tunnel system appeared to be a Fey crossing, a subtle portal that led into the Feywild or one of its subdomains. On the way, Answers found evidence that Jewel had been this way, and that he was leaving a trail for everyone to follow. Managing to stay one step ahead of various cave-ins, other icy hazards, and a very dangerous-sounding troop of hobgoblins and their pet troll, the Ragtags pushed out of the crossing and into wherever they had ended up. From the opening of the cave, they could see a frigid, icy wasteland of tall frozen shards and permafrost stretching out for miles. Beyond that seemed to be a cold and grey waste of swampy marshes. And then, beyond all that, a wall of sickly smog and shadowy Fey ruins. By Varys' estimation, the travel across the frozen wastes alone was going to take about 5 days if they were lucky. Without much to do about it, the heroes set off. At the bottom of the hill, they found a sign that indicated that the land they had entered was known as Coldmire. Suddenly, far off over the distant smoggy ruins, a huge arcane pulse filled the skies, and eventually the air cracked with a distant thunderous roar. After this, a strange tether of energy began rippling down from a rift in the heavens to some unknown point in the distance. I know that not everyone is fully versed on things that are classified in the not good category of what should and shouldn't be up in the sky, but take it from me, huge arcane energy tethers is pretty obviously on that list. Like there might be a few things above it, say, an ancient dragon, or a moon crashing through the atmosphere. But you would have to put the whole arcane tether family soundly near the top of things you definitely do not want to see in the sky at any time ever. Again, not being able to do much about the whole sky/arcane tether thing, the Ragtags pushed on into the icy land of Coldmire. Suddenly, just ahead on the road, Seratheta, the spiritor of thought, appeared from thin air. She seemed pleased that the heroes had found themselves in this particular corner of the Feywild. In her somewhat dispassionate manner, she explained that they were in the demi-plane of Mercurhain, a realm ruled by an archfey dubbed the Lord Shade Valrilin. She confessed that Valrilin was the archfey who had recruited the new spiriters of Sylvania, herself included. The Lord Shade had turned each of the archfey's considerable flaws and egos against themselves. Seretheta informed the heroes that what they were seeing in the sky was the beginning of whatever plan Valrilin had for Sylvania. By her guess, it seemed as though they were distilling the essence of the town into Mercurhain, but for what purpose, she couldn't say. She did mention that, of course, the heroes were the only hope for Sylvania, and that they had very little time to save it. You know, standard boilerplate adventurer stuff, stock and trade, all that. Seretheta did offer that she would do her best to be there when the heroes needed her the most, and that she would endeavour to find them help in the form of other warriors, wizards, warlocks, and whoever else might be useful against the machinations of a rogue archfey, with a scary name and a terrifying world-ending plan. With that, she bid them good luck and disappeared into the icy mists. Faris guided the companions through the icy wastes with little trouble during the daylight hours. Even the weather stayed clear, though frigid. Despite that, several of the group felt the effects of the cold land, but had to push on nonetheless. At one point in the day, the party discovered a strange scroll written in Sylvan. Varys translated and found that it was a piece written by the bard O'Regan O'Dale. It appeared to be a history of the lands of Mercurhain, detailing some of its original inhabitants. Apparently the land was created by an archfey known as the Great Shade, a powerful entity that was supposedly similar and possibly related to the Queen of Air and Darkness, the ruler of the unseelie court of Fey. The Great Shade had given birth to two entities, Gwyn Wyn, Sovereign of Spiders, and Morgilla the Black, and they had gifted their two offspring the domain of delight known as Slan Hain. For a time, things were good. Gwyn Wyn lived in a lovely dry wooded grassland area, and Morgilla lived in a lush marshy lakeland. But this didn't last, as these things often do. The heroes felt that perhaps someone, maybe even the bard O'Regan O'Dale themselves, was leaving this law behind as some sort of warning or important background information about the world or the like. Finishing out their first day on the frozen roads of Coldmire, Varys observed that the companions had probably made up a day's worth of travel and were now ahead of schedule. The party camped for the night in a secluded space between several rises formed from ice and snow. It was good to finally rest and sit by a fire, such as it was, after a long day of travel through the frigid land of Coldmire. And while they were in an uncertain, unfamiliar, and highly dangerous place, sharing a camp and a meal warmed more than the companions' bodies. Yup, I mean their souls. It warmed their souls too. Near the end of the night, a harrowing and not at all natural-looking mist flowed into the area around the heroes' camp, and chilling sounds like ghostly voices and cries filled everyone's ears. The Ragtags sprung into action just as several zombies appeared at the outskirts of the camp. Then at the top of a nearby hill, two wraiths materialized, screeching their blood-shuddering cries. As a group of spectres also appeared out of the ethereal and into the night, Varys rushed forward looking to end things quickly by turning the undead threats. Before he could act, the two wraiths set upon him and attacked, draining the life force from his body with their cold, dead forms. The rest of the heroes raced into battle, with Drogon literally flying thanks to one of his magic items, and Regal rushing to the fallen Eladrin's side and administering a healing potion. With chaos roiling around him, Varys rose to his feet once again and holding his holy symbol aloft, he channeled the divine through him and outward, destroying the zombies with radiance and chasing away the spectres and wraiths. With a temporary lull in the fighting, the heroes prepared for another onslaught from their undead assailants. When the wraiths and spectres returned, Our heroes were able to soundly rout them now that the element of surprise was gone. Soon there was only the sound of their tired and scared breathing in the cold night. While the battle was won, most of the companions had not been able to fully rest and recover from the day's travel through the frigid realm of Coldmire. And now, many difficult decisions lay ahead before this next day's journey could even begin. Oh, right. So, remember when Varys was drained to within a millimetre of his life by those wraiths and he passed out, and that whole scary thing that occurred out there in the snow and the ice with him where he almost died? When everything cooled down, afterward, he realised that something was missing. And that thing that was missing was Minko. Varys could no longer feel that Minko was in his consciousness. Where was Minko? Well, funny story that. Minko found himself in a strange, abandoned warehouse-type structure. With some initial exploration, he could see, by looking out a window, that he seemed to be in some post-apocalyptic-looking, smoggy city. Then he looked up. In the sky above, this time from a much closer vantage point, the steadfast monk could see the huge arcane rift in the sky and the energy tendrils leading down toward the earth. Wherever it was going, it was somewhere much closer to wherever he was. Yeah, remember what I said about huge arcane energy tethers and tendrils coming from the sky? Being closer to them definitely doesn't help. Not one bit.